There was certainly excitement in the air when I got these four guys together. Robert Redford had just directed the other three in his new film, Quiz Show.
Give me the name of the explorer who discovered Mozambique.
Vasco da Gama?
Correct, for 10 points.
Along with John Turturro and Rob Morrow, Schindler's List Ralph Fiennes was on hand. He plays Charles Van Doren, a university instructor and popular quiz show champ brought down by the real-life scandal.
Jesus, Dick, if someone offered you all this money to be on some rigged quiz show, instant fame, the works, would you do it?
Robert Redford is the director who brought it all together.
You are our new champion for $21,000.
That was interesting to watch, by the way. To watch, you know, as a director, you watch your cast start to bond. I mean, how they bond.
Right.
And the first days of work, how nobody knows each other. So there's a kind of dance that goes on as you get sort of familiar with the other people. And that moment of awkwardness is really great.
Yeah. Like what moment do you
What particular moment of awkwardness?
Tough question.
This was so oddly familiar.
Fiennes had the toughest time landing his role. He was in the middle of shooting Schindler's List when Redford flew in from Poland to audition.
It was a great, nice thing to watch, because Rafe had a really tough
Childhood.
tough thing.
You're terrified. Were you terrified?
I was out of my head, and
Yeah.
and you made it very, very relaxed, and it didn't seem like any other audition test I'd ever done, because you gave me, you know, you just gave me the time to go again and again and again. And
We can get to the faces first. Right.
Redford gave E.T. this first look at him and his guys at work on the quiz show set, and it was obvious from our discussion that the actors truly respected their boss.
You've all worked with a lot of directors. What's the one thing that's different about him than anybody you've ever worked with?
He comes to your trailer and talks to you in the morning.
He comes to your trailer and he talks to you in the morning.
He spends time with the actor every day.
Hey, that's cool.
That's very different.
With coffee and a Danish.
And it's very relaxed.
Right.
I always felt very relaxed. You appreciate that.
I can tell a quick little story that, I mean, just in terms of being generous, where I had been doing a scene and I couldn't get it. I didn't feel it was good, and we did it like 15 takes or something, and I hated it. And I knew Bob, he thought it was okay, but I knew he wasn't totally happy, and I went home pretty miserable, thought about it, and came in the next morning and said, you know, I think I got it. And he said, all right, well, let's do it again. And he set up the whole thing for me, and which was, I never had that.
How often does that happen?
Well, I've never.
It was especially, it was truly extraordinary, because he didn't get it then either.
That's because your grandchild came and that's why I screamed in the middle of the take where I was going to get it.
I mean, that's what I call real
grandchildren off the
perseverance.
set.
Because I'm just easy. I'm just here to please.
You look great like that.
Robert Redford was there to please. For this second meeting with him a few days after the first, I had him all to myself. There was no doubt he wanted to promote Quiz Show, but Robert was also willing to talk about anything in his life. So we started with his childhood.
You talked about your grandfather and your father. My grandfather was a frustrated violinist. My father was a milkman who really should have been a sports writer. And they didn't really dream big. They played it safe. But you didn't. Why were you different?
Well, maybe because they did, you know. It has to do with maybe wanting to break a trend that doesn't feel good to you.
Yeah.
But I suspect it has to do with, because we didn't have much when I was a kid, the entertainment was found either within oneself and your imagination,
right,
or whatever you could physically do for yourself.
Right. Were they surprised? Did they live long enough to realize your success with you?
My dad did, but probably to his end, he never totally trusted it. You know,
Really?
I would leave the room and he would say, how's he really doing?
I don't need a coat. It's only 2 degrees.
Robert did taste success early as an actor. In 1963, he starred on Broadway in Barefoot in the Park. 4 years later, he took the role to the screen in A Teaming with Jane Fonda. It was his first big hit.
Hey, kid, how good are you?
In 1969, Redford starred in his first of 2 pairings with Paul Newman. The film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid became one of the most commercially successful westerns of all time.
Manos arriba. They got him up. Skip on down. Arriba. Skip on down.
One thing that you've said publicly about your career is that you'd like to make one more film with Paul Newman, just one. Will that happen?
It's about all we got left. You know, either that or it's a couple of guys in a wheelchair.
No, no, no. Will that happen? Are you working on it?
I hope so. I like Paul. He's a good friend. Because we're friends and because of our place in the industry and the history that we've both had, I think it would be great fun.
The Way We Were in 1973 featured another great teaming, this time with Barbra Streisand.
Are you really so sure of everything you're so sure of?
Sure.
This became, for many, Redford's most memorable hit. Ordinary People, starring a young Timothy Hutton, was the first movie Redford directed. The 1980 film was about a tormented kid in a dysfunctional family.
It's really important to try to hurt me, isn't it?
Don't you have that backwards?
Redford did not appear in the film, but his directing efforts won him an Oscar, and that overnight launched him into the front ranks as a director.
You don't really watch your films, the films you've directed? I can understand an actor not watching their film, but a director.
I know it has something to do with when the work is finished, it's finished. And revisiting it doesn't feel so good. I don't like looking back. It's kind of like graduating from high school and going back on campus.
Right.
Things don't feel so good anymore.
Right.
So what are you saying? You can't buy love? That's a bit of a cliche, don't you think?
Last year's Indecent Proposal was Robert's biggest recent hit as an actor, and having a career that spans over 3 decades in the movies certainly gives him a valuable perspective.
You know, it seems like your love of film is equal to, like, your distaste of Hollywood in a way. Is that why you've isolated yourself mostly geographically from Hollywood?
Well, you know, there's a little myth there that probably good to dispel. I don't hate Hollywood.
Right. No, I don't think
I just don't want to live there.
Right.
But somehow it's gotten turned into my being against my own industry. There are certain things about it I'm against, but it's a healthy industry I'm grateful to be in, and I respect all forms of it, so I'm all right with it.